It's day 141 of working on the Griffin's sword. It's now time to continue working on the wood portion, because the last thing we did was we made these big old grooves, or these big old hollowed out areas in the throat and tip right here. So the throat and tip now fit how I want them to. So the next thing I need to do is I want to seal the wood, and I also want to leave it with a black finish while we're at it. And the reason being, the stitching on the edges that we're gonna do around the shark skin, there's gonna be some little tiny holes there, and there's a tiny chance you could see through one of those holes and see the light colored wood underneath, maybe, right next to one of the stitches. So I want to blacken the edge, and I wanna seal the wood up so moisture doesn't soak into the wood and it doesn't evaporate out of the wood as quickly. It'll just kind of slow that process down a little bit. Now we let them dry for a few minutes. A few minutes later. The black spray paint has dried enough I can handle these pieces. They may be still a little tacky, but they'll dry as I continue on. The next thing I want to do is go ahead and rough cut out our 2 pieces of shark skin that we're going to put on the outside of this. I wanted to cut that leather out before I add the liner in, just so we don't contaminate the liner as we're cutting out the leather and stuff like that. So I've got a piece of shark skin all laid out right here, and I've got a little tiny mark on the ends. You can barely see it, a little Sharpie mark. There's kind of a center line going through this. I'm going to line this up on the center of that. Now I'm gonna mark around the leather with a Sharpie, giving myself almost an inch on each side of extra material to work with. And then we can cut out the 2 pieces with a pair of scissors. I could probably cut it a little closer than this. I probably don't need to give myself this much room, but I might as well, since we're here. I'm gonna be wasting a little bit of shark skin, but for the most part, these pieces, even if I cut the minimum amount, would be too small to use on a future scabbard anyway. There we go. Now I can cut these 2 shark skins out. I've got our 2 strips of shark skin cut out. I flipped them over upside down with the back side facing me, and now I'm going to lay the scabbard halves over them and trace around them carefully. The purpose for tracing that outline onto the leather was so I would know where to apply our next process. We're gonna add this tan coat to the leather right along those edges, and I'm gonna go beyond the line just a little bit. The purpose for these layout lines I just added is so I know where to put this tan coat, which is what I'm gonna do next. Basically what we want is for the very edge of the leather, right where it starts to wrap around to the edge of the scabbard, we want that to be heavily tan coated. What that's gonna do is it's gonna get rid of some of the squishiness of the leather. So here's a scrap of the leather. It's very stretchy. It's like stretchy, squishy, super pliable. The back side of the leather is, it's got a lot of squish and give to it, and it can almost kind of, it almost shifts from the top of the leather. So like the top surface and the back will kind of sit there and shift and scoot around a little bit. Adding a heavy layer of this tan coat should help firm up that leather along the edge and make it so the stitching works out better because there'll be a little bit more firmness to it, and it won't be so stretchy and moving all over the place, and just have a little bit more body to the leather, if you will. I did this same process to my previous scabbard that was also covered with shark skin, and it did help a lot, I think. After putting the tan coat onto the backside of the shark skin, I think I'm gonna alter my plan a little bit and go ahead and add on the outside shark skin to our scabbard before we do the liner. That way, I'll be dealing with the liner at the very last step that I possibly could, and that'll give me a lower chance of contaminating that liner on the inside of the scabbard and getting some kind of grit or crud in there. So the next thing we need to do in the steps towards putting the shark skin on the outside is to actually add our ribbing onto the scabbard. So here's my test piece I did right here, and this is the ribbing that I'm talking about. It's these little bumps that stick up, and these you find a lot of times on historical scabbards. And what we're gonna do is we're gonna lay those out far enough apart from each other that they're gonna help hold the straps in place. The straps are gonna be wrapped around the scabbard 3 times. My practice piece, I didn't even measure how far apart they are, so they're definitely, there's not enough room in there for all 3. But anyway, our strap's gonna end up wrapping through there 3 times, so we need to make sure we space these properly so 3 widths of this leather strap will fit in between it. So we're gonna have one section for the belt right here, and then we're gonna have another section of the ribbing down just a little bit further. What that's gonna do is it's gonna grab the scabbard at these 2 points and help us hold it at the proper angle that we want to when we're wearing it on our side. I've already added a layout line here. I spent a bunch of time measuring and everything. I wanna get this first rib so that the throat piece rests right up against it. So I needed to get it placed perfectly. I went ahead and did that. I've got a nice layout line. I think the next thing we're gonna do is we're gonna take this thin little leather strip here and we're going to CA glue it right along my, my little line there, all the way around the scabbard. And that's how we're gonna attach all 4 of these little pieces. I've got the ribbing material added onto both halves of the scabbard. The next thing I'm gonna focus on is I'm gonna take these apart. I'm gonna put a nice heavy coat of contact cement on the wood portion of the scabbard and on the back side of our shark skin too. And then we're gonna stick the 2 together. So I've been working on this piece for a while and it is looking fantastic. Right off the bat though, after I got it all stuck on there and I was trying to make sure it was all stuck down everywhere and start rubbing everything down around our risers, I noticed that it wasn't sticking well enough. So I ended up ripping the thing off, putting a second coat of glue on everything, and then it stuck much better. So with this second piece here, I started off right off the bat with 2 coats. I think it's because I added some thinner to this and it's a little bit thin, so it needed 2 coats to really get enough on there for everything to stick well instead of 1. Made a huge, huge difference. Also, the paint is really kind of inhibiting things from sticking to the wood a little bit too. That's a little bit annoying that the paint actually did that, but I'm working with it. So right now I just got the piece on there. I'm really trying to rub it down, really get the edges to stick, adding some contact everywhere. And then I like to go over it with my hammer here, pretty much cover the entire thing with little tiny hammers. That definitely takes a few minutes. Maybe I should get a big dead blow hammer or something and do it, but I don't want to hammer on this too much because this thin little wood liner can't take too much hammering with big hammers. Yeah, really hammer down every square inch of this thing. And we've got a rib right here. I want to show you what I'm doing for these ribs, because if you just leave them alone, they look like that. And we want them to look more like this. See how well defined this is? It's like super crispy. I love how this came out. Well, let me show you my process for that. And it just involves a lot of taking this piece of metal with a rounded edge on it, a lot of pushing down the material around that leather rib, push it down in that groove, and then I also rub on it a little bit. It kind of polishes the leather right there, kind of makes it shiny and stand out, which I'm fine with because it makes it it makes it highlight those ribs even more, having a little bit of that polish around it. So I don't have any problem with that at all. Kind of a long, tedious process, but I'm sure I could buzz through it faster, but I really want to get it right and make these look nice, crisp, and clean. A little tricky around the edges here. Just gotta work it and work it from both directions, and then you gotta do it, you gotta work both sides of each little rib as well. Yep, so I'm gonna continue hammering down the rest of this and working down these ribs with my piece of metal until I get this one done too. I just finished trimming all the excess shark skin off the front and back of our scabbard pieces. I've also laid out a little bit of a line along the edges with this little tool right here. This line will come in very handy later for when we go to add in our stitching. I wanted to get that line on there now because I can actually get this tool up in here and have it ride along the scabbard. And once these pieces are put together, I wouldn't be able to use this tool to get that nice parallel line. Next, I want to add our velvet liner to the inside of the scabbard pieces. I've cut out 2 pieces of our nice velvet, and I've got our contact cement ready to go. I'm going to put a coat or 2 on the inside of the scabbard pieces and on the back side of the velvet, and stick the 2 pieces together, or the 4 pieces rather. I've got the lining all added into our 2 scabbard halves. I trimmed all the excess velvet that was sticking up out of it, got it all nice and flush. I also used the compressor to blow the velvet off to make sure there's no contaminants and crud and stuff on there. Now it's time to glue these 2 pieces together. So for this, I'm gonna use some medium CA glue and just put a light bead all the way around. We're gonna clamp these 2 together with a bunch of little office clamps. Let the glue dry, and then we'll be able to continue on with the process of making this. Now, one of the things I need to be very careful about here is not putting on too much CA, because I don't want it running all over and getting on the outside of the scabbard. And I also don't want it getting on the inside of the scabbard where our velvet is. This is just to seal the scabbard up and to hold the pieces together, but I don't need some kind of indestructible bond between the 2 pieces, because we're gonna stitch up the shark skin all the way around the outside, and that will definitely be more than enough to hold the scabbard together. Please go together well. Don't get glue all over. The glue is dried on the scabbard, and I'm stitching it up right now, and I wanted to take you through the process I've been using in order to stitch it up. So the first thing I have to do is I have to follow my little lines. I've got 2 really subtle lines, one on each side, and they kind of lay out where the stitch is gonna go. Then I take my little stitch marker here. It's got this little pokey wheel, and run it right along that line, and it leaves a bunch of little indents to help me lay out the spacing for the stitching. Next thing I do is take my awl, and I line it up into one of those little indentions left by the stitch marker. I start out steep, I go in until I hit the wood, and then I kind of level it out a little bit. Go in about that far, go to the next one. Start off steep, go till I hit the wood, level it out, and I pretty much run that all the way down one side. Once I get it done on one side, I flip this around and I focus on the other side. And the other side doesn't have the stitch marks laid out, the spacing, because I want them all to line up. So what I do is I go by the first side that is spaced out correctly. I line up the awl with the hole on the other side and then drag it down here, find my line going this way, poke it in, level it out a little bit, and then I normally go until I can just barely start to see it come out the other hole on the other side. Line it up over the top, go in, level it out, and repeat that 1,000 times all the way down the scabbard. In order to do the stitch, I'm using some really high quality, really tough polyester string that's coated in wax. And we're doing kind of this X pattern stitch. So I've got a needle on both ends of the thread. And then to do the stitch, I first start with one side going across. So I'll just start with this side, pull it through. And then I take the other needle and go across from the other side. And that's gonna make one complete little X right there. Next, I can take both strings and pull it tight. I wanna pull it nice and snug to close up the little seam there, but I don't wanna pull too aggressively, because if I pull too hard, the string will actually cut through the soft shark skin. Sometimes it's a little bit finicky to get that needle started through both holes, but if it fusses with me too much, I can normally go in through the other side and kind of work it in there and get a nice hole opened up and then get the needle through. This is the entire process to stitch this up. I've got a ton of stitching to do. This scabbard has a lot of length to it with a lot of stitches close together. Before we move on to day 151 of working on the Griffin sword, a word from our sponsor. If you're a maker like me, you probably know the hardest part of your day isn't always the work. It's just getting out into the shop, especially when it's freezing cold or blazing hot. That's where the Mr. Cool DIY ductless mini split comes in. So I gave it a shot and the install went really smoothly. How to install Mr. Cool DIY system. Sweet. A 5-minute and 50-second video. That's nice and short. I didn't have to pay an HVAC guy $100 an hour to install it. I was able to install it myself in just over a day. Oh, that wasn't too hard at all. What really surprised me was the quick connect copper pipes. They come pre-charged, so you just have to hook up the lines, tighten them down, and you're good to go. As long as you can use 2 crescent wrenches at the same time, you can install this too, I know it. I was keeping an eye on it, didn't kink at all. Just with the spring around it, I don't know how that works, it's like magic. I was genuinely surprised by how much air this unit puts out. The hot air is piping hot, and the cold air blows ice cubes. That is freezing cold air blowing out of there. And I love that I can schedule everything right from my phone, so it's ready before I even walk out into the shop. So if you're putting off projects because the weather makes your shop unbearable, this is the fix. It heats, it cools, and it even handles humidity. It's an all-in-one system, and the fact that I can install it myself just made it that much better. That is blowing hot air. Dude, I need one of these in my house. So go to MrCoolDIY.com or click the link in the description and get comfortable today. Thank you to Mr. Cool for sponsoring this video. It's day 151 of working on the Griffin sword. I've got all the stitching done on both sides of the scabbard. I also cleaned up all the stitching. I darkened all the little holes because some of the holes had some lighter leather where I pierced them showing through, so I darkened those up with a little bit of dye. Got all the stitching smoothed out and looking beautiful. I'm very happy with how the stitching came out. I was also kind of concerned with how the stitching would work going across these raised ribs, and it worked out really, really well. It looks very good. The next thing I need to do is go ahead and start shaping the throat and tip. Right now the inside is shaped on both pieces, they fit on, but the outsides are still giant rectangles. So it's time to grind a bunch of material off the outside of these and get them thinned down a bunch so they actually look how they're supposed to on this scabbard. I'm at the 2x72 grinder with our throat piece. I've got a 36 grit belt on here. I'm gonna be laying the piece on this work rest and start shaping this into a nice kind of oval shape like our scabbard is instead of this big rectangle. I'm not yet sure exactly how thin I wanna make this part, but I'll play it by ear and just kind of scope it out as I go. I finished shaping the throat of the scabbard. I left it about 1/16 of an inch thick. I probably could have left it a little bit thicker. I kind of forgot about all the gold inlay I'm gonna put in there, and we're gonna cut those deep grooves in, so hopefully I didn't go too far. I might try to leave the tip slightly thicker when it comes to that. I've also got it all ground down to a nice 320 grit finish, so the throat piece is pretty much ready for gold. The next thing we need to focus on is the tip, and this one's gonna be a lot more complex because it's got a really unique shape inside of there. We can't see it from both ends and just grind down to the same parameters that we did on the throat piece, so I've gotta be a lot more careful on this one to not grind too deep and to burn through. And so I've actually been trying some different things out, and I'm trying to figure out a way I can find out the exact size of the inside of this so I can then lay out the outside a little bit better. My first idea was to just stuff the clay in there and then maybe pull it back out, and then it would be the shape. Didn't know if that would work or not, but as I was putting it in there, I was like, what if we melt the clay so it fills it in really nicely, and then hopefully I'll be able to take it out somehow. I think I'm gonna spray some Dykem inside of here, and that might give a little bit of a slicker surface, so the clay will come back out a little bit easier. I don't know, I'm just kind of trying out things. I've got the inside filled with the wax. We've got our big lag bolt down the center. I sprayed some water on it just to try to cool it down a little bit. I think what I'm gonna do is put this in the freezer and leave it in there for a while, and then I'll probably try to pull on it. I'm not feeling like that's gonna come out very good though, just based off of the clay that's on the outside here. I don't think that it's gonna break free, but Josh had a really good idea that we might try out. If I can't seem to get it once it's frozen, I might just lightly take the torch and heat up the whole thing on the outside real quick, just enough to break that bond, and then take out our popsicle piece of clay, and hopefully it'll be somewhat close to the size of the inside. So that actually worked. I left this in the freezer inside the tip for about 1.5 hours, and then I tried to take it out, but it was completely stuck inside the tip. I just took the torch and heated the outside of the tip all the way around a little bit, just enough to melt the outside of the clay just a little bit, and then take out this entire center. Having that big bolt in there was very nice. It distorted a little bit, but not too much at all. Now we can see the true shape on the inside. You see I've got a really weird little low spot right there, but it was hard to get in there and shape all that, so overall, I'm happy with it. Now I should be able to lay this over my tip piece and kind of center it up and then trace around it to have a better idea of how the inside is shaped. So I'm gonna do that, and then I'm gonna take this thing over to the grinder and just start grinding away on it. Oh, hey, so I was able to use our clay popsicle here to help me identify the inside hole in this piece and transfer it to the outside. And because of all that, I got the outside of our tip profiled on the grinder. We've got everything thinned down in here a lot. I'm gonna have a decorative little like pommel nut shape here on the very end. That's why it's all flared out like this. The next thing I need to do is thin it down this way. It's still very thick this way. So I'm gonna take a bunch off on the surface grinder, about 70 thousandths on this side, and then the other side was a little bit thicker, so I'm taking 85 thousandths off on this side. Once I get these two sides done, then I think we'll be able to go in with a round wheel and start sculpting all the corners and really rounding and shaping this, and so it's not just a big rectangular shape. I didn't surface grind this little tip piece all the way down flush with the rest of it. I'm not exactly sure how I'm gonna shape that yet, so I wanted to leave a little extra material there in case it comes in handy later. It's getting pretty soon though. Pretty soon here, I'm gonna have to figure out how I'm shaping this little tip piece. So yeah, I'll worry about that later though. Next, I wanna use the 2x72 grinder to start rounding all these corners, because right now it's just a big rectangle. So we need to round and shape all these corners to kind of match the shape of the slot on the inside. So I'm still working on shaping the tip of our scabbard, and I need to make the end of it round for that little part that's gonna kind of be like a big pommel nut, the little decoration on the end of it. So what I came up with here is to actually CA glue the end of the tip piece just to a round piece of metal, and now I'm turning it down on the lathe. And I thought it was really cool, and I wanted to show you what it looks like before it ends up breaking off. I don't know if the CA is gonna hold, but if it does, this should work out nicely to make the end of this nice and perfectly round. There we go. That looks good. Nice and round. All right. Now that I've got this round, I should be able to come over here to this work rest and this little round wheel and really start to round these square corners here. That will leave us in a really good position to shape this and get all this shaped up and looking good as well. After a good number of hours over at the grinder, I am finally done shaping the tip of the scabbard. It came out wonderful. So far, I haven't seen anywhere where I've burned through onto the inside of the scabbard. There's still time for that to happen as we heat treat and sand and do all that, but I'm pretty confident that I've left a good thick wall everywhere and we shouldn't run into the inside. I love the little finial that I created here on the end of it. I think that adds a really nice little touch to it and looks really cool. The tip fits on here nicely still. We've got our throat also fit, ground down, ready to go. These two pieces are actually ready for gold inlay. That'll be the next stage on them. In fact, I already did a little bit of layout on the top piece here for some gold. I especially love how this tip came out though. The little finial here that I was kind of undecided on whether or not I wanted to add it. I think it adds so much to the overall look. This scabbard is really coming together now. It won't be too long before this thing is done and then I can get back to finishing the sword. Also, I want to tell you about our incredible Griffin t-shirts. We are not going to be ordering any more of these. So once they're gone, they're completely gone and we only have a few left. I have been wearing these shirts ever since we started this Griffin build all the way through. I think I have 4 of them myself. I've washed all 4 of my shirts dozens and dozens of times now, and the print is holding up incredibly well. We have the printing done right here in Springfield, Missouri. The shirts are an oxblood color, which I love. They're not just like a black or your standard colors, this kind of deep, dark, reddish Rust-Oleum color. I love it so much. The print quality is incredible and holding up so well. In fact, as far as shirts go for me, the print still looks pretty much brand new, but I'm starting to wear holes through the shirt just from all the grinding and different things I've done on this sword project. So the print's probably gonna hold up longer than the actual material. It's 100% cotton, so you don't have to worry about accidentally catching your shirt on fire and then having it melt to your skin or something if you're forging like you would with a polyester shirt or anything. It feels really comfortable. It fits really well. This is a Griffin holding my Griffin sword. So that's the actual sketch of my Griffin sword before I even started, and that Griffin is holding the Griffin sword, and it's got all sorts of cool artwork and everything. I love how it looks. It's a collector's item because we're not gonna be ordering any more. Once these are gone, they are gone. So check the link in the description and don't miss out before these are completely gone. I will see you in the next video. May the forge be with you. Bye-bye!